Imagine a clear blue sky over the South China Sea. A seasoned fighter pilot radios in, calm and professional during a routine maneuver. Then in an instant silence. Not just radio silence. Radar silence. Complete, utter vanishing. His jet, a powerful machine, simply blinked out of existence mid-flight. No explosión. No distress call. No wreckage found across a vast ocean search. Just gone. For 12 long years, it remained one of aviation's most chilling unsolved mysteries. Where did Captain Rafael Santos and his F-5 jet disappear to in 1978? The answers, when they finally surfaced, were far stranger and more terrifying than anyone could have imagined, rewriting everything we thought we knew about that fateful flight and what truly hides in our deepest oceans. If this real-life mystery sent chills down your spine, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell. We dive deep into the world's most baffling unsolved cases, unexplained phenomena, and historical enigmas every single week. Don't miss the next journey into the unknown. Where are you watching from? Let me know your city name in the comments below. I love seeing where our community connect from around the globe. The sun beat down on the concrete runway of Basa Air Base, Philippines, on the afternoon of October 17, 1978. It was a Tuesday, hot and humid like most days, the air thick with the scent of jet fuel and distant rain. Captain Rafael "Rafi" Santos, a seasoned pilot with the 5th Fighter Wing of the Philippine Air Force, performed his final pre-flight checks on his F-5A Freedom Fighter, tail number 57-032. At 34, Santos was respected, a family man with a wife, Elena, and 2 young daughters waiting for him in nearby Angeles City. This was supposed to be a routine proficiency flight, an hour of maneuvers over the relatively empty skies west of Luzon towards the South China Sea. Tower, Tiger 1, systems green. Requesting taxi clearance. Santos' voice crackled over the radio, calm and professional. Tiger 1, tower. Cleared to taxi runway 20. Wind 250 at 10 knots. Roger, tower. Taxiing. The sleek, twin-engine jet, painted in camouflage greens and browns, rumbled to life. Santos guided it smoothly onto the runway, the engines whining as they spooled up. At precisely 14:47 p.m., the control tower gave the final go-ahead. Tiger 1, cleared for takeoff. Cleared for takeoff, Tiger 1 rolling. The F-5A surged forward, gathering speed rapidly, a blur against the tarmac before its nose lifted gracefully. It climbed into the brilliant blue sky, becoming a shrinking silver dart. Radar controllers at Basa and the nearby Wallace Air Station tracked its ascent as Santos reported reaching his assigned altitude of 25,000 feet just west of Lingayen Gulf at 15:05 p.m. Control, Tiger 1. Level at Angels 25. Commencing exercise Foxtrot. Copy, Tiger 1. Exercise Foxtrot approved. Report position every 15 minutes. Exercise Foxtrot involves standard combat maneuvers, climbs, dives, simulated missile locks, and evasive banking. Routine. Santos' first check-in at 15:20 p.m. was uneventful. Control, Tiger 1. Position, 150 nautical miles west of Basa. All systems nominal. The radar return was a solid, reassuring blip. At 15:35 p.m., Santos initiated a simulated high G turn. His voice came through slightly strained but clear. Control, Tiger 1. Executing hard starboard turn now. Pulling 5 GS. Stable rolling out. The radar showed the expected sharp change in direction. Then silence. 15:36 p.m. No scheduled check-in yet, but the radar operator, Sergeant Benji Cruz, frowned. The blip representing Tiger 1 seemed indistinct for a second. He adjusted his scope. Tiger 1, control. Confirm your heading after maneuver. Your signal is weak. Nothing but static hissed back. Tiger 1, control. Do you copy? Santos, come in. Sergeant Cruz's voice tightened. The radar screen flickered. The blip representing Santos' jet pulsed erratically, like a candle flame guttering in the wind. It wasn't moving like an aircraft. It was shimmering, fading in and out of existence. Cruz felt a cold prickle on his neck. "Sir," he called to his supervisor, Lieutenant Garcia. Tiger One's transponder is malfunctioning. Signal degrading rapidly. Garcia leaned over the scope. "What the?" "Try primary radar only." Primary radar painted the sky based on raw returns, not reliant on the jet's transponder. The screen refreshed. Where the crisp, clear return of the F-5A should have been, there was nothing. Just empty sky. The transponder signal had vanished entirely a second before. Tiger One, Santos, respond immediately. Garcia barked into the mic, his knuckles white. Only the unnerving hiss of dead air answered him. It was 15:37 p.m. The jet and Rafael Santos had been airborne for exactly 50 minutes. Panic seized the control room. Emergency protocols snapped into place. Search and rescue, SAR, was scrambled within minutes. Two other F-5s, already airborne for training, were vectored towards Santos' last known position. A massive air and sea search commenced, covering thousands of square miles of ocean west of Luzon. They scanned the water for wreckage, an oil slick, a life raft, any sign of catastrophe. They found nothing. Not a single piece of debris. Not a life jacket. Not a drop of oil. It was as if the jet and the man inside it had been plucked cleanly from existence. The vast, indifferent South China Sea offered no clues. The official investigation that followed was exhaustive yet baffling. They scrutinized Santos' record, impeccable. They examined maintenance log for the F-5. Everything was in order. They considered mechanical failure, catastrophic structural disintegration, even pilot error or suicide. But no scenario explained the utter lack of debris. Jets don't simply vaporize. The radar anomaly, that strange, fading blip, was noted but dismissed as unexplained equipment glitch. By December 1978, the active search was called off. Captain Rafael Santos was declared missing in action, presumed dead. A heartbreaking ceremony was held. His family received a folded flag, but no body, no closure. The mystery of Tiger One became a somber footnote in PAF history, a chilling tale whispered in pilot briefings, a raw wound for those who knew Rafi Santos. 12 years crawled by. The Cold War tensions shifted. Technology advanced. The world moved on. But for Elena Santos and her daughters, the pain remained a constant, dull ache. The official file gathered dust in a Manila archive. Then, on a morning thick with monsoon humidity, June 12, 1990, Philippine Independence Day, the impossible happened. A small, weather-beaten Filipino fishing trawler, the Maria Clara, was hauling its nets about 180 nautical miles west of Subic Bay, an area notorious for deep, unexplored trenches. The crew, led by Captain Tomas Gutierrez, expected the usual catch of tuna or mackerel. As the heavy nets broke the surface, tangled within the dripping mesh wasn't just fish. It was metal, twisted, corroded, barnacle-encrusted, but unmistakably aircraft metal. Large, jagged pieces painted in faded camouflage green and brown. Gutierrez, a former Navy man, felt a chill that had nothing to do with the spray. He ordered the net lowered carefully onto the deck. Among the seaweed and flapping fish, the crew pulled out larger sections. A portion of a wing with a visible hydraulic line, a section of fuselage skin bearing stenciled lettering worn almost smooth, but Gutierrez could just make out the numbers. 57. His blood ran cold. He remembered the stories. The vanished jet. He rummaged through the smaller debris caught in the net. His hand closed on something hard and rectangular, crusted with marine growth. He scraped it with his knife. Beneath the grime, polished metal gleamed. It was a military-issue dog tag. He wiped it frantically. The stamped letters were clear, undeniable. Santo Zehi Amy asterisco asterisco. Een Fiota Alfias Fim Stiana. Catholic asterisk asterisk. The silence on the deck of the Maria Clara was profound, broken only by the lap of waves against the hull and the frantic cries of circling gulls. Captain Rafael Santos' jet hadn't crashed near land. It hadn't gone down within the initial massive search radius. It had somehow ended up here, impossibly far out, in some of the deepest water on the planet, 12 years after it vanished without a trace. And the discovery of his dog tag, found amidst the wreckage, posed a terrifying question that echoed across the years. What catastrophic, inexplicable force had snatched a fighter jet from a clear afternoon sky and deposited its shattered remains and the proof of its pilot into the abyssal depths? Over a decade later, the mystery, long dormant, was violently, horrifyingly alive again. The search for answers was about to begin anew, plunging into depths far darker than the ocean floor. The discovery of the Maria Clara sent shockwaves through the Philippine military and the nation. News of the vanished jet's wreckage, and crucially, Captain Santos' dog tag, spread like wildfire, reigniting the cold case with the heat of 1,000 suns. By June 14, 1990, a full-scale recovery operation, codenamed Operation Deep Echo, was underway. Naval vessels, including the BRP Raja Humabon, were dispatched to the trawler's coordinates, approximately 180 nautical miles west of Subic Bay, over the Manila Trench, a chasm plunging deeper than 5,000 meters. Diverse and remotely operated vehicles, ROVs, descended into the crushing darkness. Visibility was near zero, the water temperature barely above freezing. Powerful lights cut through the gloom, illuminating a scene of profound desolation. The wreckage wasn't concentrated. It was scattered across a wide, debris-strewn slope leading towards the trench's abyss. Large, recognizable sections of the F-5A lay broken and silent. The mangled tail assembly, a portion of the cockpit canopy frame, one engine nacelle split open like a rotten fruit. Barnacles and strange, pale, deep-sea organisms clung thickly to every surface, a grotesque shroud accumulated over a dozen years. The discovery of the dog tag had sparked a desperate hope in Elena Santos. A hope for answers, for a body to bury, for closure. But as the recovery teams meticulously cataloged the debris brought to the surface aboard the Raja Humabon, that hope curdled into a deeper dread. Among the twisted metal and frayed wires, they found personal effects. A scorched but recognizable flight manual page with Santos' handwritten notes in the margins, a melted fragment of a wristwatch stopped at 3:37, and most chillingly, a single, heavily damaged flight boot. It was empty. There was no sign of Rafael Santos himself. No remains. Nothing. It was as if the pilot had simply stepped out. Commander Alonso Reyes, head of the Naval Investigative Service, stood on the deck, the salty wind doing little to dispel the unease clinging to him. He examined a large section of fuselage skin, the faded 57-032, just visible beneath the marine growth. 12 years, he muttered to his deputy, Lieutenant Diaz. How does wreckage end up here? The initial search covered hundreds of miles closer to shore. Currents don't work like that over these time frames, not dragging heavy metal uphill onto a slope like this. Diaz nodded grimly, consulting a chart. Sir, the last radar position was approximately 150 nautical miles east of our current location. That's over 300 miles from where he vanished to where we found him, against prevailing currents. It makes no physical sense. The scientific team aboard, led by Dr. Anya Sharma, a marine geologist flown in from Manila University, was equally baffled. Analyzing sediment samples clinging to the wreckage, she presented her findings days later in the ship's cramped briefing room. The barnacles, the sediment layers, they all confirm an immersion time consistent with 12 years, she stated, her voice tight with professional disbelief. But Commander, Lieutenant, the mineral composition, the specific types of deep-sea incrustation, this wreckage spent years at depths exceeding 4,000 meters, far deeper than where we found it scattered. It wasn't deposited on that slope 12 years ago. It landed somewhere much deeper, much further out, and has only recently been shifted up the slope. Reyes frowned. Shifted up? By what? Earthquakes. Possible, Dr. Sharma conceded, but the pattern, it's localized. Only this debris field shows this specific recent movement signature. And the force required to move fragments this large, it would have left clear seismic markers. We've checked the records. Nothing significant correlates within the last 5 years in this precise sector. She paused, tapping a core sample. It's as if something disturbed its resting place. Deliberately? Or something else shifted it. The implications hung heavy in the air. The jet hadn't just crashed far from its last known position. It had plunged into the uttermost deep, a place unreachable by 1978 technology, and its pieces had somehow begun a slow, inexplicable migration back towards shallower waters after a decade. Why? How? Then came the discovery that froze the blood of everyone involved. Buried under sediment and coral growth within the mangled remains of the tail section, technicians painstakingly extracted a heavily damaged metal box. It was the F-5's flight data recorder, the fabled black box, though this one was painted bright orange, now faded and scarred. Hope surged momentarily. Answers. But it was immediately tempered by the box's condition. It was crushed, corroded, its casing breached by the immense pressures of the deep. The internal tape spool was a mess, partially unspooled, waterlogged, encrusted with salt crystals. It was flown under guard to a specialized laboratory at the Subic Bay Naval Base. Technicians worked around the clock in a sterile, climate-controlled room. Cleaning the tape was a painstaking millimeter-by-millimeter process under microscopes. Days passed. The tension was unbearable. Reyes, Elena Santos, granted special observer status due to the personal connection, and a select few officials watched through a viewing window as the technicians finally managed to thread a section of the fragile tape onto a specialized playback machine designed for damaged media. The machine word clicked, hissed. Static roared from the speakers, a deafening white noise that seemed to echo the void the jet had fallen into. Then, cutting through the static, came the familiar, calm voice of Rafael Santos, clear as if recorded yesterday. Control, Tiger 1. Executing hard starboard turn now. Pulling 5 GS. Stable, rolling out. Asterisk. A collective gasp went through the observers. It was the last transmission received, but the tape kept playing. The static surged again, then lessened. There was another burst of sound. Not Santos this time, but the raw, unfiltered noise from the cockpit microphone. The scream of the engines, the rush of air. Then, abruptly, a sharp, metallic crunch that made everyone jump, followed by a rapid series of thuds and a sound like tearing metal. Santos' voice returned, but it was utterly transformed. Gone was the calm professionalism. It was choked, strained, filled with a terror that transcended mere mechanical failure. He wasn't speaking to control. It was a raw, guttural exclamation, half-shouted, half-groaned into the mic. Dios co. Oh no. My God. What? The instruments. They are spinning. All of them. Like a top. The sky, it's wrong. Asterisk. His breathing was ragged, panicked, hyperventilating. Another loud bang echoed on the tape, shaking the playback room speakers. Santos cried out, a wordless sound of pure shock and pain. Then, amidst the escalating chaos of rending metal and a sudden, terrifying high-pitched whine that wasn't the engines, his voice cut through again, sharp and desperate. I see ya. Asterisk. The sentence ended not with a word, but with a horrific, wet, tearing sound, immediately followed by a deafening electronic screech that overloaded the recorder. Then abruptly, total silence. Not the hiss of static. Pure, dead digital silence. The tape had run out, physically ripped or melted at that exact point. The playback room was tomb silent. Elena Santos had collapsed into a chair, trembling, her face pale as ash. Commander Reyes stared at the dead speakers, his mind reeling. Santos hadn't just suffered a mechanical failure. He'd witnessed something terrifyingly inexplicable. Instruments spinning wildly, the sky looking wrong. And his final, cut-off words, asterisk, I see, Asterisk C what? The question hung in the sterile air, more terrifying than any answer. The physical wreckage was a puzzle. The tape was a descent into nightmare. The mystery hadn't just deepened. It had plunged them all into the same abyss of terror that had swallowed Rafael Santos 12 years before. What unspeakable thing had he seen in the clear blue sky over the South China Sea? And why had the evidence waited 12 years to begin its journey back? The silence in the playback room lingered, thick and suffocating, long after the speakers died. Elena Santos sat rigid, her knuckles white where they gripped the chair arms, the echo of her husband's raw terror vibrating in her bones. Commander Reyes felt a cold sweat prickle his scalp. The official narrative, mechanical failure, pilot error, a tragic crash, lay shattered like the wreckage on the Raja Humabais deck. This was something else. Something wrong. The black box tape became the investigation's grim lodestone. Technicians managed to salvage another fragmented minute preceding the final maneuver. Routine engine hum, Santos' calm breathing, the faint crackle of radio static. Then, precisely at the point correlating with the radar's guttering blip, the tape revealed a subtle anomaly. Before Santos cried out about spinning instruments, a low-frequency hum, almost subsonic, bled onto the recording. It wasn't engine noise. It pulsed, subtly intensifying, then faded just before the metallic crunch and Santos' descent into panic. Audio analysts at the Subic Bay lab isolated it, ran it through filters. The sound defied categorization. Organic yet mechanical, ancient yet utterly alien. It sent chills down spines. Meanwhile, the physical wreckage yielded another shock. Deep within the mangled cockpit section, painstakingly cleaned by forensic techs, they found something that shouldn't be there. Not metal, not wiring, not plastic. It was a thick, viscous residue, dried to a dark, tar-like crust, embedded in the twisted frame near where the pilot's left hand would have been. It fluoresced faintly under ultraviolet light, emitting an eerie, sickly green glow. Samples were immediately sealed in sterile containers and flown under armed guard to the National Science Research Institute in Manila, marked Priority Alpha, unknown biological origin. Dr. Aris Mendoza, a renowned microbiologist with a skeptical eye and nerves of steel, took charge. Her state-of-the-art lab became ground zero for the impossible substance. Initial tests, completed by July 3, 1990, were baffling. "It's organic," she reported to Reyes and a grim-faced panel of military and scientific advisors via secure video link. Complex carbon chains, amino acid precursors, but the molecular structure is chaotic, unstable, like nothing in any database, terrestrial or marine. She paused, her usual composure fraying. "Commander, we exposed a minute sample to controlled heat. At 45 degrees Celsius, it moved. Not liquefied, moved, as if reacting." A stunned silence followed. Reyes leaned forward. "Reacting to what, doctor?" "We don't know," Mendoza admitted. "It exhibited a brief, low-level energy signature. Not heat, not radiation we can identify. Then it stabilized. But the structure changed, became more complex." She swallowed. "We attempted a microscopic scan. The electron microscope malfunctioned catastrophically when the beam touched the sample. Burned out the imaging sensor. Whatever this is, it doesn't like being observed at that level." The implications were staggering. The residue wasn't just strange. It was actively resistant to analysis, seemingly possessing properties that defied known physics. Was it some bizarre, deep-sea organism? A weapon residue? Or something else entirely? The shadow of Santos' final, unfinished cry, asterisk, "I see ya," asterisk, loomed larger, darker. Simultaneously, Elena Santos, driven by a grief now mingled with a fierce, burning need for truth, began her own quiet investigation. She visited Basa Air Base, retracing her husband's last day. She spoke to the aging Sergeant Cruz, the radar operator. He remembered the fading blip vividly. "It wasn't like a failure, ma'am," he told her, his voice trembling. It was like the jet was dissolving, pixel by pixel. In the silence afterwards, it felt heavy. Wrong. Elena then visited the base archives. Buried deep in the logbooks for October 1978, she found an entry dated October 15th, 2 days before the disappearance. It noted a minor, unexplained radar anomaly reported by Captain Santos during a routine patrol over the same general area west of Lingayen Gulf. The entry was brief, almost dismissive. Asterisk CPT Santos R. Reported momentary instrument fluctuation and visual disturbance, described as heat shimmer, but cold. No other aircraft or contacts detected. Systems check nominal. Logged as atmospheric anomaly. Asterisk. He called it cold shimmer, Elena whispered, reading the dry words. A chill unrelated to the archives, air, conditioning seeped into her. He'd seen something before. He'd felt it, and it had been dismissed. Driven by this clue, Elena sought out Santos' closest friend and wingman, Major Benji Laxon, retired and running a small flying school in Pampanga. Laxon, a stoic man, visibly aged when Elena showed him the archive entry. He hesitated, swirling cheap brandy in a glass, the humid night air thick with the scent of frangipani. Raffi. He mentioned it, Elena. Laxon finally admitted, his voice low. After that patrol on the 15th, we were having beers. He looked unsettled, not scared, but deeply confused. He said it was like flying through a patch of cold glass. Said his compass spun like a top for maybe 2 seconds, then snapped back. Felt a weird vibration in his bones. And Laxon looked away, troubled. He said he saw a shape, just for an instant, high above him, like a dark tear in the blue. Then gone. He laughed it off, called it sunstroke or bad lechin from lunch. But Laxon met Elena's eyes. I saw it in his face. It bothered him. Deeply. He made me promise not to mention it. Said he didn't want grounded for seeing mirages. Elena felt the world tilt. A dark tear in the sky. Cold shimmer. Spinning instruments. The residue that moved. The tape's alien hum. It was all connected. Her husband hadn't just vanished. He'd flown into something that left a mark. Back in Manila, Dr. Mendoza's team made a breakthrough born of desperation. Reasoning the residue reacted to observation. They tried indirect analysis. They placed a sealed sample chamber inside a powerful magnetic field generator. On July 17, 1990, they activated the field. Sensors recorded a sudden, massive spike in localized gravity within the chamber, a reading impossible with their equipment. Simultaneously, the residue sample visibly pulsed, darkening and emitting a brief, intense burst of the same sickly green UV fluorescence. Then, the magnetic field generator overloaded and exploded, showering the shielded lab in sparks. The sample remained intact, seemingly inert again. Mendoza, shaken but triumphant, called Reyes. Commander, it reacted to the field. It generated a localized gravity distortion. This substance, it interacts with fundamental forces. We're not looking at biology anymore. We're looking at physics, or something beyond. Reyes stared at the phone, the implications crashing over him. Santos flew into what? A localized gravity anomaly? A rift? Something that tore his jet from the sky, subjected it to forces that crushed metal and left behind a residue that bent reality? Something that deposited the wreckage impossibly far away, deep in an abyss, only for it to begin a slow, inexplicable return years later? And Santos' final words, asterisk. I see ya. Asterisk, had he seen the source? The architect of this impossible physics? The investigation had plunged from a cold case into the icy waters of the truly inexplicable. They weren't just searching for a lost pilot anymore. They were hunting a ghost in the machine of reality itself, a ghost that left a tangible, terrifying residue. And as Reyes looked at the reports, the audio spectrograms of the unearthly hum and the glowing residue sample locked in its lead-line vault, a new, more profound fear took root. Whatever took Rafael Santos wasn't done. The evidence hadn't just surfaced. It had been delivered. The question now wasn't just what happened in 1978. The question was, why was it coming back? And what did it want? The Manila Trench suddenly felt less like a grave and more like a conduit to something unimaginable, and the scattered wreckage of Tiger 1 felt like a warning shot across the bow of human understanding. The abyss wasn't just below them, it was reaching out. The revelation from Dr. Mendoza's lab sent seismic waves through the small, classified circle privy to Operation Deep Echo. The residue wasn't just alien, it manipulated reality's bedrock. Commander Reyes, operating under directives stamped with the highest levels of national security, knew the investigation had irrevocably shifted. This was no longer just about Captain Santos. This was about an existential puzzle buried beneath the sea. Pressure mounted. Public curiosity about the Maria Claras find had been contained with vague statements about historical wreckage recovery, but leaks threatened. The military needed answers, fast. A bold, secretive plan was hatched, Project Aperture. Its goal: return to the precise debris field coordinates and deploy the DSV Nautilus, a newly acquired, state-of-the-art, deep-sea, submersible capable of descending beyond 6,000 meters. Its mission: find the origin point. Find where the wreckage truly came from before it was shifted up. Dr. Anya Sharma, aboard the research vessel Magellan acting as the Nautilus's mothership, meticulously analyzed the debris scatter pattern in Dr. Mendoza's data on the residue's gravitational interaction. The movement vector, she explained to Reyes on October 10, 2010, the anniversary of Santos' disappearance looming, points down the slope towards the axis of the Manila Trench. And Commander, the gravitational distortions Mendoza observed? Our deep-tow sonar arrays are picking up faint, localized gravity anomalies right there. She pointed to a spot on the trench map, a jagged cleft nearly 5,800 meters deep. Microscopic ripples in space-time, consistent with the residue's signature. Something massive down there, or something that was massive, is generating residual effects. The Nautilus, a sleek titanium orb bristling with sensors and manipulator arms, was crewed by veteran pilot Captain Lorna Del Rosario and chief scientist Dr. Kenji Tanaka. Its descent on October 17, 2010, exactly 32 years to the day since Santos vanished, was a plunge into crushing darkness and crushing expectation. Elena Santos watched the feed from a secure room in Manila, her heart a drum against her ribs. Reyes stood on the Magellanes Bridge, the humid air electric with tension. The descent was uneventful until 5,200 meters. Magellan Nautilus. Del Rosario's calm voice crackled over the comms. We're encountering significant turbidity. Large sediment clouds, swirling. Unusual current patterns. Like something stirred the bottom recently. The external lights cut through murky water, revealing the trench slope littered with boulders and ancient rock formations. Then, at 5,750 meters, Tanaka gasped. Captain, sonar contact. Large, dense object, bearing 270 degrees. Approximately 300 meters ahead. It's not rock. Structure is too regular, too angular. The Nautilus inched forward, lights piercing the gloom. The sediment cleared momentarily. What emerged from the darkness froze the blood of everyone watching. It wasn't wreckage. It was a structure, a vast, partially buried geometric shape, seemingly constructed from the same dark, obsidian-like rock as the trench floor, but unervingly smooth. It resembled a colossal, fractured tetrahedron, one edge jutting upwards, fractured faces revealing hints of complex inner lattices that glowed with a faint, internal, sickly green light, the exact hue of the residue fluorescence. Scattered around its base, half buried in sediment, lay unmistakable debris. F5, a landing gear, a large section of wing spar, all heavily encrusted but identifiable. Tiger 1 had indeed landed here. Dios mío, del Rosario whispered. It's artificial, or natural? I can't tell. The scale was immense, dwarfing the submersible. As the Nautilus moved closer, its external sensors screamed warnings. Massive localized graviton surge. Tanaka yelled, frantically adjusting instruments. Electromagnetic field spiking erratically. It's reacting to our presence. The submersible shuddered violently, as if caught in an invisible current. Alarms blared on the Magellan S-bridge. On the video feed, the green light within the structure pulsed brighter. Then, something extraordinary happened. The swirling sediment directly in front of the Nautilus coalesced, not into a cloud, but into a distinct, three-dimensional shape. It shimmered, composed of billions of glowing particles suspended in the water, mirroring the residue's fluorescence. The shape was rough, humanoid but colossal, and cradled within its chest, formed from denser, brighter particles, was a smaller, unmistakable shape, the silhouette of an F-5A fighter jet. A sound, not through the comms, but seemingly generated within the water itself and picked up by the hydrophones, vibrated through the Nautilus and the speakers in Manila and on the Magellan. It was the same low-frequency, pulsing hum from the black box tape, amplified 1,000-fold, resonant, ancient, and profoundly intelligent. It wasn't noise. It was language, a complex, modulating signal. Simultaneously, a data stream erupted across Tanaka's console. It's transmitting raw data, complex waveforms embedded with visual packets. He worked frantically, decoding. On a secondary screen, fragmented, grainy images began to resolve. Sky, blue sky, distorted, shimmering coldly. The view from a cockpit, instrument panels spinning wildly. Then, a glimpse through the canopy, not of clouds, but of a terrifying vortex of warped light and darkness, a dark tear in the fabric of the sky. The perspective shook violently. A final, fleeting image, a vast green, luminous eye, not biological but geometric fractal, gazing down with impossible focus. Then static. The hum intensified, then shifted. Amidst the complex modulation, a familiar voice emerged, synthesized yet achingly recognizable, woven into the alien signal. Elena, seen, not gone. Observed, preserved. In Manila, Elena Santos choked back a sob, her hand flying her mouth. It was Rafi's voice, strained, distant, but his. The message repeated, observed, preserved. Then the colossal sediment figure holding the jet's silhouette gently dissolved, the particles streaming back towards the glowing structure. The hum faded. The gravitational and EM spikes plummeted back to near baseline. The structure's internal light dimmed to a faint emerald glow. Magellan, Nautilus, * Del Rosario reported, her voice trembling with awe and terror. * the structure, it's inert again. Transmission ceased. We were just communicated with. We heard Santos. * The Nautilus retrieved one final piece of evidence before ascending. A small fragment of the structure's glowing lattice, dislodged near the F-5 debris. Analysis later confirmed it shared the exact, chaotic molecular signature of the residue found in the cockpit. It was the source. The official report, sealed under the highest classification, concluded that Captain Rafael Santos encountered an unknown, non-terrestrial phenomenon, a sentient gravitational anomaly or entity associated with the Manila Trench structure. His jet was pulled through a localized space-time rift, the dark tear, and deposited intact near the structure. He didn't die instantly. The entity, curious, observed him, preserving his consciousness within its matrix, perhaps studying human life and technology. The residue was a byproduct of its interaction with our reality. The wreckage's return after 12 years? A deliberate act. A message in a bottle cast onto the shores of human understanding, triggered by some internal process or perhaps the approach of the Nautilus decades later. For Elena Santos, the truth was both horrifying and strangely comforting. Her husband hadn't suffered a violent end in the cold sea. He had been taken by something incomprehensible, something that acknowledged his existence, preserved his essence, and ultimately, through the entity's strange act of communication, returned him to her, in a way. She found a measure of peace, visiting the Manila Bay shoreline on calm evenings, gazing west towards the trench, whispering to the wind. I see you too, Raffi. Preserved. The Manila Trench structure remains, silent and enigmatic, buried under miles of ocean. Project Aperture's findings are locked away, a terrifying secret. The residue samples are contained in facilities designed to withstand gravitational shears, studied in hushed tones. The hum from the deep, the voice woven within it, and the image of that fractal I serve as a chilling reminder. We are not alone, and the deepest ocean isn't just water and rock. It's a window, and something ancient and vast is looking back. Captain Santos vanished into the blue, but he showed us the abyss isn't empty. It's watching. The mystery of Tiger One was solved, but the truth it unveiled opened a far deeper, darker enigma beneath the waves.